Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm actually just doing some yard cleanup. And we've got a lot of trees, of course, on our property. And over the winter, we don't really do much yard maintenance. So with snow, we had an ice storm, of course, wind, heavy rains. A lot of these trees shed a bunch of branches and just make a mess. And then, of course, a lot of them are walnut trees. So I'm also cleaning up some walnuts in this video as well. I spent about 6 hours total this day doing some yard cleanup. So it made a pretty big impact, but I also thought that maybe in this video kind of do like a get to know me type thing because my channel is still fairly new. I don't have a whole lot of videos, and I've actually not been in the videos a whole lot until recently. So I figured this would be a good chance to just kind of, introduce myself, talk a little bit about, who I am, what my everyday life is like, some history with our property and how everything came about. So I hope you guys enjoy. It's not a real eventful video, but, it's just doing some yard cleanup with me. So come along.
We could reach the other side, and you start to doubt. I don't blame you, 'cause I feel the same. 'Cause I can only hold on for so long, and we should be proud. All that we can do is hope for miracles, or just let it go. But honey, we have to be together here in the stormy weather.
So I guess I'll go ahead and start out with the basic, of course, introduction. Obviously, my name is Derek, and me and my husband Matt, who is the other guy in the videos, we bought this piece of property. It's almost 3 acres in eastern Tennessee. And a little bit of history about the property. It's actually, I grew up right here in this area. This piece of property goes all the way back, I know, at least to my great-grandparents. And you'll see later in the video, it's a pile of rock down at the end of the property, down by the road. And that was actually the chimney and part of the hearth to their house back, I'm going to say, I think it was mid-1800s is when the house was built. My cousin actually has the rock that was part of their mantle, and it has the date carved in it. But anyway, so we bought this piece of property from my Aunt Jane that lives next door. When I was a little kid, they had cows on the property. It was kind of grown up some. And then after her and my uncle retired, they actually started working on clearing the property, clearing up a little bit. And then they would bush hog, and she would mow some of it. And then when my uncle passed away, I got to thinking, because we lived about 20 minutes away in the next town over. We had a little brick ranch home in a subdivision. And in this area right here, this is like my aunt lives next door. I've got an aunt and uncle that live across the street, and then next door to them is actually my parents. And that house is the house that my mom grew up in with her sisters. So this whole little area, you know, is family land, real close. So I got to thinking, you know, it's a lot of property for her to keep up. So I talked to her about possibly selling us some acreage, and she agreed to do so. So once, you know, she agreed to that, we went ahead and put our house on the market, sold it right off the bat. And we had like a 35-foot camper, and we put it on the property in between our property and her property. There used to be a mobile home there, so there was electricity there, water, sewer. So we actually pulled our camper in there and set it up for 6 months and lived in it while we waited. We did order a manufactured home, have it put out here. The main reason being we were trying to we didn't want to be house poor, you know, and end up with a ridiculous house payment. And then also building takes so long. We actually checked about a barn dominium, and of course it was a lot more expensive, plus the time frame. And when we done all of this, I mean, the timing wasn't perfect. We should have waited, but it was right in the dead of winter. So, you know, we didn't want to live in our camper full time, you know, any longer than we had to. So we did that. And like I said, we've got right at 3 acres. So we moved in, and we've done like the driveway. Of course, if you've watched any previous videos, you've seen we did the driveway ourselves. My dad helped us build the porch. And then I have done a ton of landscape work around the place. And of course, I've got a million plans for other things to do in the future. So this summer, I'll probably have plenty of videos of working out in the yard and projects. And I did buy a subcompact tractor last year that I was able to get quite a few projects done. But I've got plenty of work scheduled for that baby this summer as well.
Cause it's black, yeah, it's black. Oh, the water's black. Cause it's black, it's all black, black water.
So what I'm doing right here is we've actually got kind of like a hole in the ground that was dug out. I think my uncle had done it at one point. We use this basically as like our brush burn pile. So, you know, anytime when we do our yard cleanup with the sticks, if we trim trees, trim shrubs, when I'm cutting the dead flowers at the beginning of spring, we just load everything up in our Cushman, bring it out here and dump it so we can burn it. And it just makes it so much easier to do those kind of projects and dispose of the mess. And I will just say, this little Cushman, I absolutely love this thing so much. When we were working on the driveway and stuff, my aunt actually has an old school Cushman, like an early 80s model, and she let us use that with our driveway, and it was just, I don't know that we could have done it without it, honestly. It was such a game changer. So once we got moved and settled onto the property, I knew that we had to have something like this with a dump bed. And when I say that I put this thing to use, I mean, in the summertime, this thing gets used multiple times a week. It's just perfect when we do mulch. A lot of times there is a tree trimming company that they will take their clippings, and across the street there's just a little area that they will dump those for everybody in this little area to use for their mulch. So we take the tractor down there, scoop it up, put it in this thing. It makes it so quick and easy to just take the mulch and dump it. And of course you can see here with the sticks, the walnuts, it's a life-changing thing to have. Anyone that has any property, a significant amount of property to take care of, if you've got one or ever had one, I'm sure you would agree. makes your life so much easier. And I will say, like, I love having trees on the property, and we've actually planted quite a few more trees than what was already there. But the trees that were already there, a lot of them are walnut trees, and then there's a few box elder trees that are older, and they are so messy. I'm thankful for them, but I mean, you can see here, this is a lot of work to keep it clean. And then we've got this one beautiful, I love this pine tree in our front yard. It's my favorite tree that we've got. But I wouldn't change anything because I love the trees. It's just the mess and the cleanup is just something that comes along with it.
Are we built to last? Will you stay for good? Are you from the past life? Feel alive. I've known you before.
And with the tree cleanup, all the sticks, I'm basically going around and picking up all the sticks that are of significant size. There's a lot of smaller ones that I'll probably rake some of them, but then the real small ones, we'll just mow over and chop those up. But with sticks like the ones I'm picking up, if you leave those, our mower would chop them up. We've got a 0-turn mower. It would chop those up, but it's going to dull your blade. So I like to just go around at the start of the season and pick those up. Kind of the same thing with the walnuts. If you set the blade high enough, it will go over a lot of the walnuts without, sucking them up into the blade and chopping them up. But, when you start mowing the grass, I like to mow the grass lower than what you have to set it on to not pick up the walnuts. And typically, I'm not really sure, but like this year, it seems like this is our third year being on this property. And every year, by the time spring rolls around, the squirrels typically have cleared out most of the walnuts. And the ones that are left, a lot of times, for whatever reason, it's like they pile them up right under the tree, around the trunk of the tree. But I had read that with walnut trees, that apparently like every 3 years or 4 years, they do an excessive amount of walnuts. So I don't know if, like I said, this is our third year, so maybe that is the case, combined with the squirrels not needing the walnuts or wanting them. I'm not really sure. But this year, there were so many walnuts. It was unreal. And on the slanted parts of the property, when there's that many walnuts and you're driving over it with the mower, like in the fall when they start dropping, the mower's just like kind of rolling down the bank, the slope, because you're just on a bunch of walnuts. And so, those will dull the blades as well. So I really, wanted to get as much as I could up. And then, of course, I'll take the leaf blower and get them off the driveway. And I've got these flower beds down here that I mulched last fall. I've still got to get the blower out and get those. But this day, it was, decently warm. I had the day off, which I don't typically during the week. And I wanted, to just take advantage of it and go ahead and kind of get a jump start on our spring cleanup. And even though I've got plenty more work to do, but I figured this would be a nice head start on getting some of the cleanup done for the season.
Yeah, baby, ooh, yeah, this place just makes you, kinda makes you want to more. Yeah, it makes you want to more. It kinda makes you wanna move. What you gonna
So this is the lower part of our property down at the road. And as you can see, our house, it is quite a ways off the road. I want to say it's about 500 feet or so. We wanted to do that because the property, you know, it was kind of long instead of wide. And we didn't want to be right on the road. And the way that the property dips, you can kind of see there where the driveway dipped. You know, there was some water issues in that lower part. So we did not, you know, want to put anything there and have to deal with that. And we still have, even putting the house that far back, we still have plenty of space in the backyard. And I've got a couple of projects that I'm hoping that we're going to get to, as far as getting a shed built and a little greenhouse. But also right here, you can kind of see to the right those rocks right beyond the tree. That is the chimney and part of the hearth to the old family place. And actually, I think I said great-grandparents, but it was actually my great-great-grandparents, because I did do some ancestry stuff while we were living in our camper, because I needed, you know, some kind of hobby to keep me from losing my sanity while living in a camper. But yeah, you can see right here the road, the cars going by, and then that row of pine trees. We do have a business next door to us, but thankfully they did plant that row of pine trees, so that kind of, you know, we don't really see it. There are, you know, some security lights at night, but on this side of the business, it is actually just their roadway for like their delivery drivers and you know, trucks coming in, dropping off stuff. So there's not a whole lot of traffic, except for, you know, your random trucks out there, and then, you know, occasionally a forklift moving some stuff around. So I consider us pretty blessed in that aspect, because like I said, we did live in a subdivision, and on one side of us, the neighbor wasn't the best. Luckily, we did have good neighbors otherwise, but the one house that was next to us was a rental house, and it was just a lot to deal with, a lot of noise and dogs, you know, at the fence all the time when you're out in the yard working and stuff. So I am glad as far as that goes. And then behind us, we've got the railroad is on the back of our property, and then on the other side of the railroad, it's just wooded property. So you know, we don't really have any neighbors right on top of us. And then my aunt's house, you can kind of see right there in the background to the left. And that's the aunt that we bought the property from. She's the closest. And this is her Cushman I was talking about, and her little dog, Buddy. He loves to come over and follow her around when she's on that thing. But she come over to just kind of see what I was up to and what kind of project I had going on for the day.
If you feel lonely, I will be here and wait for the sun. It's getting closer, but it will never let us down. Here by the ocean, fire is burning, flares in the wind.
And some of you may be wondering while you're watching this video why I'm raking up like 20 different little piles instead of putting it all in one. And the only thing I can say is it's just how my brain works, I guess. I feel like it's easier for me to not get overwhelmed when I have multiple little piles when it comes to picking them up. You know, scooping them up on the rake and then dumping them in the back of the Cushman. If I would have just had, you know, a few huge piles, it would just overwhelm me a little bit. So that's why I did that. I just rake up little random piles and then went around. Like I said, I don't know. It's just the way my brain works. And it was kind of overwhelming anyways because there was so much. But I was determined to at least get this part done. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, like, the next day, I was so sore. Like, if you want to find out how out of shape you are, go out and work in your yard for 5, 6, 7 hours one day, and I can guarantee you, if you are out of shape the next day and even the day after that, you are sure going to find out real quick. Your body's going to be like, all right, so this is where we're at. You're going to need to get it together if you're going to keep putting me through this.
Till our fires burn out, days like this will slowly fade away. Memories will always stay the same. Always stay the same.
Going back to the whole house situation, like I was saying earlier, we didn't want to be house poor. And, this isn't in no way bragging, but I like having play toys, I guess more so than having a big, huge house. And so, kind of the way we looked at it, when we sold our house, we were able to profit enough to basically buy the land, and then pretty decent chunk down on the house, and then also we had to get a 0-turn mower because we went from 1/3 of an acre lot to 3 acres. Get the driveway, the stuff for the driveway to put that in. Build the porch. Get us a storage building. So there was a lot of things like that. And then we also, as I said, we had a camper. We love to go camping. We've got a boat. I wanted to be able to buy that tractor. So for me, everybody's different. For me, I would rather have money to travel and buy other things, toys or equipment that helps make, life easier and maintaining our property. So that is why, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, I can't believe that you sold, a brick ranch house and went with a manufactured home. But also, like our house, we had done a lot of work to it, but it was built in 1965. And when we bought it, it was the original owner that had lived there, and she passed away. There had been zero updating done to that house. And even though we had done a lot of work, like windows, doors, a roof, electrical, there was still a lot of stuff that we would like to have done to the house. So the way we looked at it, when we moved here, we got a brand new house. We got to pick out, our counters, our cabinets, our flooring, carpet, stuff like that. Of course, the floor plan that we wanted. And we ended up with something that was everything was brand new. And so when we moved in, it was just cosmetic stuff. Like, I wanted to do some painting and, just do some accent walls and stuff like that. So for us, it totally made sense to do this. I know, a lot of people say as far as long-term investment, it's not going to appreciate as much, but we're really not worried about that because honestly, our goal, our plan is probably, more than likely to stay here until we reach the age that we can either no longer work or we can do part-time, what I would consider a fun job, and just travel, because we love to travel so much and just get out and have adventures, see new places. And then at that time, if we get to that point, then we would just either rent this place out or just sell it. But more than likely probably rent it out just so we would have it, to fall back on. But it's something that we do not regret one bit. We love being out in the country. We've got basically the same square footage that we had at our other house. We don't have the 2-car carport. I do kind of miss having that a little bit. But honestly, we kept the boat on the carport, for it to have a covered area. So we didn't even really get to park the cars under the carport. But here, we did build a little lean-to on the back of our building, so we can park the boat under there and keep it kind of tucked out of the way. And then the shed that I mentioned earlier for the backyard, that is actually going to be for us to park our pop-up camper that we just bought because we sold our big camper. And then we're going to move the boat there. And then the convertible that we bought, we're going to park it where the boat is now so that it will have a covered spot to park.
I met you during the golden age of television shows like Parks and Recreation. Just ended a long-term thing, and that was just a fling. Meant nothing, yeah, just a fling, and meant nothing. Starfield sky, late September night, a twist of fate, your warm embrace. Yeah, I'm stuck on you, sir, stuck with me through all. We're in right now. We are having quite the ball, so you know I'm in it for the long haul. 'Cause stuck on you, sir, stuck with me through all. I fell for you so fast. When I turned to two, I thought you had...
So I think this part here, raking up the walnuts and then bending down to scoop everything up on the rake is really what made me so sore. The backs of my legs and then also my hand that I was using to scoop the walnuts. Even my fingers were sore from this, but like I said, I'm out of shape, I guess, from sitting around not doing much over the winter season. So it did, even though I was sore, it felt nice to be able to get out, get some fresh air, and have a productive day doing something around the house.
Get up alone, too heavy on my own. The world is moving on, I'm still standing here.
I realize that this video is not the most exciting content to be watching, but I just kind of wanted to, take everybody along, kind of a day in the life, doing some yard cleanup. And, share a little bit of information about myself, our story with the property and everything. And if you do like this kind of content, yard work, gardening, travel, I do ask if you'd hit that subscribe button. We do a lot of traveling and we go on random weekend adventures. and I bought this new camera, and so I do plan on creating quite a bit of travel content. And then I do a lot of yard work and landscape. I've got multiple projects lined up once the weather breaks and things start coming to life. And I've got a garden tour that I want to do once the flowers come back, because I've done a ton of landscaping and flower gardening around our house. I'm excited to show that off as well. So yeah, if you don't care, just hit that subscribe button and you can come along. And I appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Forget how much it takes. No reasons left behind. One day I'll make you mine, and it won't come easy.